Government has backtracked from a proposed move to impose a 200% tax on those who deposit unaccounted wealth. CNBC TV 18 has been reporting that this 200% penalty was not legally tenable, and now the government has moved those amendments to the Income Tax Act. In fact, joining us now is the gentleman who very first told us on the channel that the move was not legally tenable. The Additional Solicitor General, former Additional Solicitor General Biswajit Bhattacharya joins us. Mr. Bhattacharya, appreciate you joining us here on CNBC TV 18. I remember, sir, it was you who literally, I think, a day or two after the announcement was made by the government, said that this 200% penalty that the government hopes to impose is not legally tenable. On the back of what you've heard from the government today in terms of the amendments to the Income Tax Act, do you believe that now those loopholes have been adequately plugged?
Yes, madam, I think they have been plugged because now this demonetization scheme has been converted into an amnesty scheme, basically. And the cost of this amnesty scheme is 50%. So it is a slightly more expensive than the IDS scheme, which concluded on 30th of September 2016. So now, in case you have undeclared cash at hand, if you have black money, and now if you voluntarily disclose it as per the law which has been, tabled today, and whatever little I could read, means by paying 50% of the cost in the shape of, tax and sort of surcharge and all that, you will be getting, you can convert 100% black money into 50% white. So this is an amnesty scheme, and out of that 50%, 25% you have to lock in some 0% interest bearing. So this is an amnesty scheme, and only the penalty provisions have been made more stringent. So this is the third amnesty scheme. So this is the third amnesty scheme announced by this government, as we know that. But anyway, this is this loophole had to be plugged. This loophole had to be plugged, and on balance, anybody who is holding unaccounted cash currency, he gets an opportunity to deposit unlimited amount.
That's right.
And by paying a price, half the price. So this is...
You're right, Mr. Bhattacharya. That there is no threshold that the government has mentioned, so that's one aspect. Two, of course, it is a voluntary disclosure scheme, so you can avail of this amnesty scheme, as you pointed out, if you were to voluntarily disclose the amount and convert the black to white. But Mr. Bhattacharya, I also wanted to ask you, sir, on whether you believe that the penalty regime stands changed as of today, because beyond 30th of December, which is this demonetization income disclosure scheme that we're talking about, the government has also amended, crucial provisions of the Income Tax Act, which deal with provisions relating to taxation and penalty of unexplained credit, investment, cash and other assets, whether that's Section 115 BBE or penalty under the Section 271 AAB, etc. Do you believe that the amendments moved by the government really change the penalty regime that has so far been provided for under the Income Tax Act and makes it much more stringent?
You see, as far as Section 270A is concerned, penalty for underreporting 50% or misreporting for 200%, there is no change whatsoever. As far as Section 105 BBE is concerned, the amount of penalty has been basically enhanced. Hello? Hello?
Yes, sir, go ahead. We can hear you.
And as far as search, you see, the other provisions and all these will have to be moved in the shape of a retrospective amendment. So therefore, all these laws, because as of the date...
But Mr. Bhattacharya, on that point, we asked the Revenue Secretary that question, and his take was that this will not amount to a retrospective move because this comes into effect from the 1st of April 2017.
Well, frankly speaking, if the Revenue Secretary is making that statement, then he must be correct. I don't know. Because from whatever
Okay.
little I have read today, as on the date
Yes.
when the scheme was announced on 8 p.m. on 8th of November by the Honorable Prime Minister, these provisions were not there. And
Yes.
people started depositing money believing the existing laws to be true. Now, 20 days down the line out of 52 days, from 8th of November to 30th of December makes 52 days. So out of 52 days, 20 days down the line, when you propose
Yes.
the changing of law, in my limited understanding, it has to be brought about by a retrospective amendment.
Retrospective.
Otherwise-
Okay. That's a
otherwise-
fair point you make,
otherwise-
sir.
Otherwise, how will the amnesty scheme work? From
Yeah,
whatever
fair
press,
point,
from
Mr.
whatever press report I have made, except for Prevention of Money Laundering Act, except for Foreign Exchange Management Act, and except for Drugs Act, in all the other laws,
Right.
and tax laws, the amnesty has been given. Blanket amnesty.
Yes.
So, in my limited understanding, retrospective amendment will have to be brought about. So, this amnesty scheme. So effectively, in my view, the entire demonetization scheme has been converted into basically an amnesty scheme. Anybody who is willing to shell out 50% and voluntarily disclose it, and he will get 25% of his cash back, which will be white. Another 25% white will stand credited into his account, bearing 0% interest. So at the end of the day, this has become an amnesty scheme.
Right.
And all the existing penalty provisions have been made more stringent. That makes sense because the errant taxpayer must be punished. The intention, you see, on one hand, you punish those who do not declare the funds voluntarily. But if you declare it voluntarily, then you are spared. Then you convert.
You're absolutely right, Mr. Bhattacharya.
Yes, please. Yes, please.
So the penalty provisions have been strengthened, and but at the end of the day, we have now seen the government announce another income disclosure scheme, an amnesty scheme, as the former Additional Solicitor General, Mr. Biswajit Bhattacharya, is calling it. Appreciate you joining us here, sir, on CNBC TV 18. Well,